This episode of the Black Girl Boss podcast is brought to you by Black Girl Boss University. Black Girl Boss University is an online school for new and aspiring entrepreneurs to get the tools and strategies that you need to grow your business. Registration is open right now until the end of August. Everyone who signs up for Black Girl Boss University this month will get a free coaching session with me. So go to www.blackgirlbosses.com/university to get your university brochure and to sign up for your free trial today. Let's start the show.
Work hard for what you want in life.
You work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
That your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
That you treat people with respect.
Reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard.
The strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Hey guys, it's Tatum, and welcome to episode 34 of the Black Girl Boss podcast. So we have the opportunity, an amazing opportunity, to cover the Black Alumni Networking Weekend. So they had an expo, and then they had the Black Alumni Ball. So first of all, I'm still processing the fact that we're really media, because I never thought of, like, when we started the podcast, I never really thought about this is like a real media outlet, like we're media. So like when publicists reach out to maybe have their clients on shows, or when we get invitations to like cover events, I be like, what? Like, we're really media. That's crazy. That is so crazy.
It's because you guys are.
What'd you say?
I said, well, it's because of them that we are media, because you have to have a certain amount of listeners and a certain amount of, traffic to be that. So because of you guys, we are media.
Yes. Shout out to y'all. Y'all the real MVP. And if y'all have any events that you want us to cover, definitely reach out, blackgirlbosses@gmail.com. Definitely reach out to us. And if the scheduling permits, I mean, I love going to events for free, so I ain't even gonna lie. Definitely reach out, and if it, what'd you say?
Especially if it's a bomb event.
Yeah, for real, exactly. So we covered the Black Alumni Networking Expo. So I had a family obligation, and so unfortunately I wasn't able to go. And Milan had a speaking engagement Saturday morning, so she went to the ball. So I'm going to read a little bit about the mission of the organization and what it's all about. So the Black Alumni Networking Expo is an annual conference whose mission is to increase career advancing opportunities for Black college graduates. BANEXPO provides a platform that encourages professional development and increased awareness for diversity inclusion. The goal is to close the widening success gap that continues to plague Black graduates today. So this is just a mission that is so freaking amazing. Like, I definitely commend the people who started this, because there's definitely a success gap with Black graduates. When you go to a HBCU and you have so much pride in a HBCU, then you get into the work world and they don't know what a HBCU is. It's like crazy, So shout out to them for coming up with this. So we didn't get to go to the panel that they had during the day on Saturday. Oh no, this was a Friday. Yeah, we didn't get to go to Friday night's event or Saturday morning's event. Milan was able to just go to the ball. So they had like 3 events. So Friday was the Creating Your Own Opportunities panel and dinner for entrepreneurs. So they had like a woman from the Black Upstart there. They had a founder, someone from Google who's like the diversity lead at Google, I can't talk today, at Google. So that was pretty awesome. And they just had a host of other amazing brown entrepreneurs talking about that on Friday night. And then Saturday morning, they had the expo. And that was where they had like a career fair, networking, keynote speakers. They had a healthy lifestyle training, breakout sessions, and they even had a graduate school admissions fair. So they was really like covering career and entrepreneurship. So I think that was like super awesome as well. And they even in their career fair, they had partnered with Fortune 500 companies to create opportunities for Black college graduates. So they had companies like AT&T, Cargill, Capital One, Geico. So they partner with these companies to get people like us in the door. So again, I think what they're doing is like so necessary and so amazing. And so Milan's going to tell us a little bit about the ball, but for you guys who want more information on the BANEXPO, go to www.banexpo.org and stay up to date on when the next one is so that you can definitely attend. So let's talk about the ball. How was the ball? I'm so salty I wasn't there.
The ball was I can't even say lit because it was so classy. So it was very upscale. We'll say it was very upscale. Everybody was dressed so nice. I was coming down the escalator, and I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I was arriving and I saw this couple and they were color coordinated to the T. Like she had a pink dress on and he had his little black suit with his pink tie, and they were just so fly. And I said, no, we're coming back next year and we got to color coordinate like this. And I'm just like describing them. And I come down, all the way down the escalator, and then there's more couples down there that are just so fly, so color coordinated. And of course, they're HBCU graduates, so that was like just so beautiful to see that HBCU love, staying strong, because we all know it can be definitely difficult in undergrad dealing with your love and everything. So to see them together and to kind of, eavesdrop on their conversations and hear that, them talking to their friends, like, oh my God, y'all still together. And then one couple was there and I forgot what he said, but she said, Mrs. And I was like, go off. You better say it, Mrs. So it was just really nice to see that. What else about the ball? They had a really, really nice backdrop where everybody was taking their pictures at. So I did hashtag and see some of the pictures that were taken in front of the step and repeat and on the red carpet. They look phenomenal. The ball had a live band. I think the live band was probably one of the best parts because I've never been to an event where they had a live band. Like a legit live band. So they played for about 2 hours. They played a lot of songs that we knew and a lot of old school songs that we still knew. So that was kind of dope where they had that. And then I know they had someone on the mic and she was trying to sing the songs and it wasn't the best thing. But nonetheless, the band was great. Definitely was great. It was definitely gave it the atmosphere of that, older crowd. Not just having a DJ busted. I'm about to say Molly Perkins, and it's so funny I said that because at the end when they were closing out the band, they played that on the instrumental of it. So that was kind of cool that they actually played the instrumental, but they didn't really get into the Molly Perkins set of it. So that was great. The only thing that I will say, it was not a situation when it came to the bar. I don't know how the tickets ran because, again, we were media, but I know they were $40 tickets. They were $80 tickets. But the bar, and this is for Tatum because she loves her wine, y'all, it was like $14, $15 for a glass of wine, one glass.
Did they tell you, like, what kind of wine? So you at least knew that you were paying $50 for a nice glass of wine?
It's pretty safe to say that it was not top shelf wine, only because if you look on their sponsors list, I don't think there was any like wine sponsors to even provide that. So not something they had to pay for. They had to pay for, the bartending and stuff. So yeah, no, I don't think it was. No. I didn't even go over there because one, the line was really long, and two, I wasn't purchasing it, so I didn't need to go near it. I only knew that it was $14 because one guy came out and told his girlfriend, he said, yeah, you ain't getting that because they charged $14 for a glass of wine. He came straight out the door and said that. So that's how I knew how much that cost. And then as I was walking past, I did see the actual drink list. I didn't see the wine list because it was on the other side, but the actual drinks, theirs was pretty steep too. I mean, I guess I say steep to say if you purchase the ticket, I wouldn't expect the drinks to be that much as you would pay like $10 or, $11 or $15 at Fridays. So it was kind of steep.
And I'm okay. I'd be okay with like prices being higher as long as it's like top shelf liquor. paying $15 for a glass of Sutter Home is like ridiculous. You can get a bottle of Sutter Home. It's a cheap wine. So I don't know. Maybe they could, and it might be. I'm sure it has something to do with maybe the cost or something like that. But yeah, maybe next year they can bring the wine cost down, or even include drink tickets with the ticket price. That might help or something.
Yeah, I don't know if they had, like, if you were the $80 ticket person, if you got free drinks. I'm not sure about that because, again, we're media, so we didn't have to even think about any of that. But yeah, I don't know if the $80 people were able to receive free drinks. And then there was limited seating too. But I guess at a ball they want you to kind of be up, mixing and mingling and standing around more so anything and dancing. But they did, of course, people grabbed those as soon as they could, and they kept them because, again, you couldn't sit down anywhere else. And if you did decide to sit down, you might as well just hold your seat. So that was kind of, I would suggest, I guess, more seating next year, just for the ladies like me who he'll start killing them after 30 minutes and cannot do it no more after that. But yeah, so that's probably like the only thing I would say, the drinks and the seating. But other than that, it was a really great experience. Everybody, like I said, everybody was so classy, very upscale. Even y'all, if you went to a HBCU, then you know when you hear coming from the 99 to the 2000, what the whole room is looking like at homecoming.
Money taking over for the 99 and 2000.
Right. When you hear that, you already know what time it is. Surprisingly, it wasn't that time. Like, people was twerking, but it was a classy twerk. It was definitely classy. They were twerking on their husbands and their significant others and to themselves. And there was nobody trying to get up behind you and watch you bust it open. It was none of that. And I was just like so excited. So I told my boyfriend how it was. And he was like, oh, that was right up your alley, wasn't it? I'm like, yes. And I'm just so happy right now. Because I always say that I always want to go to something like that that's so classy and everybody is just so together. So I was like really excited for that. But it was a great experience. And next year I know that I need to come in a full gown because, honey, those ladies was killing it, okay? As my mother would say, they were not giving life. They were putting people on life support. So shout out to you ladies and you gentlemen who were there, definitely well put together and looking nice and holding it down for our community because y'all did that.
Yes, I was looking at the hashtags. I was looking at like pictures on Instagram, salty, and everybody just looked so beautiful. Like it was so great to see just a room full of Black excellence. Everybody in there is college graduates. People are in their career field or entrepreneurs. I think Angela Yee hosted it this year, and just to see so much Black woman, Black girl, Black man magic, like all of it, just to see so much Black excellence in one place. It was just a beautiful thing for me to see. And then even when I was checking out pictures from like the panel and the other events that they did for entrepreneurs and then for the career development, it was just overall, I think they had a great lineup of things. It covered, like I said, entrepreneurship, it covered career, it covered fun. People got a chance to turn up a little bit. Like I think that it's an amazing event, and it has a great purpose. Of course, there's always things that you can do better, but just for whoever put that together, just to be able to put together something for Black people that furthers the community, I think is so necessary and so commendable. So shout out to them. Thank you for inviting us. For you guys who missed out this year, definitely go next year. If for y'all that did go, tell us how you liked it so we can read your comments and stuff like that. Maybe send it to them for some feedback. And thanks, Candace did the PR for them. So thanks for the invite. And hopefully we get invited next year so I can go. And again, for y'all that are doing events and stuff like that, reach out to us if you want us to cover your event and talk about it on the show. This episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast is brought to you by you. insert your company name right here. So I'm so excited, you guys, because we are opening up things for sponsors from you guys. So of course we can have our corporate sponsors and things like that, but what better way to advertise to other Black girl bosses than to sponsor the Black Girl Boss podcast? We have thousands of listeners all over the globe, and we would love to talk about your products or services right here on air in the middle of the show. We've had guests in the past who have seen direct results from being on our show in their businesses with new leads, new clients, new income. So we want to open up the opportunity for everyone as well. So to learn more about the Black Girl Boss sponsorship opportunity, send us an email at blackgirlbosses@gmail.com. Send us an email at blackgirlbosses@gmail.com so that we can feature your company on the show. And we're back. Today we have an interview with Miss Christine Carter. Christine is a thought leader for marketing to millennial moms and Black consumers. Over the past 10 years, she has established her credibility as a marketing strategist and researcher of millennials, forming strategic alliances for organizations with Starbucks, Under Armour, and Whole Foods, to name a few. She has appeared on a number of podcasts, served as a panelist at national conferences, and has advised multicultural media outlets like BET. She has also regularly contributed to Forbes and Huffington Post, covering millennial parenting, millennials in the workplace, and Black millennials. Because of her sometimes controversial articles, she's more familiar with internet trolls and article misinterpretations. Even Perel Hilton and Milo, I cannot pronounce this last name, have provided their 2 cents. She has been profiled by both Ebony and Women's Health and has partnered with brands such as Chico, Hungry Root, 23andMe, Otterbox, and Therapeutic as a social media influencer via her highly followed Instagram and Twitter accounts. By night, she is referred to as just Babe and Mommy by her husband James and the Black Tommy and Angela Pickles, her children Maya and West. So welcome, Miss Christine Carter to the Black Girl Boss podcast. So Christine, I just want to thank you so much for being on this show. We have really a lot to talk about in our conversation, but I just want to thank you so much for being a part, because I feel like everything that we're talk about today is really beneficial to our listeners. So just thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to contribute.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's just hop right into it. So tell us about your journey. We've already heard your bio. We know all the awesome accolades that you have, but talk to us a little bit about who you are and how did you come to be this voice of a generation?
Sure. So about 10 years ago, I was the director of marketing for a regional retailer here in Baltimore and decided to open up my own marketing firm for small business mom and pop stores because I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed the advertising and the marketing and PR. And to build a bit of credibility for my business and acquire new customers, I started writing, completely unaware that my talent was really in public relations and writing. So I never turned down the opportunity to write for a journal, a blog, what have you. And that led to me being featured in Ebony, and then led me being featured in Women's Health. And I started contributing for Inc. and Forbes and Huffington Post, and now the latest being Health. And that's what's led me to being a contributor.
That's so awesome. So how did you even get into those big name publications?
Sure. So again, never turning down an opportunity. And because I was always willing to write for selfish reasons, the more that you write, the better a writer you become. So I would take interviews if somebody was interested in hearing my story. I would write for a blog that only had about 300 subscribers. It wasn't anything on a national or global scale. And I happened to, about 4 years ago, get in touch with somebody who wanted me to write for their blog about being a mom and how that affects my marriage and how it affects me as a professional. And that person ended up being an editor for Ebony. So that feature gave me a bit of credibility with some of the larger publications like Forbes and Huffington Post. And it was because I was willing to take a chance and not turn down any opportunity, and contributed to the smaller blog that it led to these larger opportunities.
That's awesome. And that's something listeners really need to take note of, not being afraid to start small. Because again, you never know who somebody is, who they're going to become, who they're connected to. So it's amazing how you taking those opportunities that a lot of people may have overlooked really led to you being in these household name publications. So yeah, kudos to you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you said you started your own marketing company. So a lot of our listeners are new entrepreneurs or they're aspiring to be entrepreneurs. How did you go about starting that business? What were your beginning steps?
Oh, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the beginning. And I should also, full disclosure, I'm no longer the owner of a company, but I was actually speaking on another podcast and mentioned this too. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be the be all for anybody. So as your listeners are entrepreneurs now, they might just be fine-tuning some skills to bring them back into the corporate world. That's what I did. And it ended up that my salary was 3 times the amount that it was when I left, because I took the time to be an entrepreneur and learn some of those independent and strategic skills. But to answer your question, I started with reaching out to some stores because I was doing marketing, advertising, PR for small business retailers. I was very passionate about their struggle, the struggles with entrepreneurship, the struggles with pre-recession and having customers come into the store, and the fact that most mom and pop retailers at the time, they had no idea how to set up a website, how to be active on social media. And because I was a millennial and very comfortable with that and it came organic to me, I combined that with the passion that I had for them. And I just was always engaged and eager to take on any job that they sent my way. And it started off very small, started off with just a few stores and a few projects. And then over time, the services that are offered expanded and my client base expanded internationally. So it's baby steps with everything, right? So that's basically how it started.
That's awesome. So you have the experience as both a career woman working in corporate America and entrepreneurship. So that's like pretty awesome that you are able to maneuver the two. So what are some like differences or pros and cons that you think are in careers and entrepreneurship? Which one do you prefer?
Well, there are so many blood, sweat, and tears that come from entrepreneurship, and I think that my opinion of it is a bit skewed because I was young and there's some mistakes that I made. I didn't really monitor the external landscape to really identify the trends and look at the patterns of the fact that we were about to be in a recession before I started the business. So I'm a little bit biased to working for corporate America. However, I would have never been able to accelerate as fast as I did had I not become an entrepreneur.
Right. And I assume because you were able to get so many more skills than you would have got if you would have just stayed on a career track, right?
Right.
That's awesome. So you've worked with organizations like Starbucks, Under Armour, and things like that. Were those clients from your business or your career?
Those were from my career. I formed alliances with companies like that on behalf of the organizations that I work for, but all of those initiatives were ways that I was driving innovation for companies and saving costs. And it almost always started at the local level and scaled up nationally within the company. With regards to positioning myself, I'm not afraid of a no or sending a cold email. So it wasn't very difficult for me to partner with those organizations because at the end of the day, all you can do is ask.
Right. Absolutely. So let's say for our listeners, if they're trying to do the same thing and they're sending these cold emails or they're cold calling, what are some follow-up tips for if they don't answer that email, but you still want to form that alliance?
Sure. So I think that a lot of people miss the fact that whether you're in sales or not, even if, for example, with your podcast, if you were interested in getting more features in traditional outlets like Forbes or Wall Street Journal or the post or something like that, regardless of what you are actually providing, you're always selling. Everyone is always selling themselves, even in an office, to get the next promotion, right? To work on the big project, you're always selling yourself. And to sell yourself is to say what I can do for you. So I would encourage everyone to look at that cold email and make sure that they're answering the question, what are they doing for the person that they're trying to sell to or pitch to, first of all. And that should be the first paragraph or the first sentence of their cold email. The second thing is to never give up, because the only reason that most people get segments on morning shows or features is because they are persistent. And persistence pays off. They usually say send about 3 emails, send the initial, send a follow-up, and send a closing. You can send 4, 5, 6 emails. You know, as long as you're providing something different in each email, a new insight, a new point that would entice somebody to work with you. That's the thing. I never stop sending emails. And sometimes it will be at the time of day that I sent the email. That's what mattered. Or the day of the week that I sent the email. And the person legitimately and honestly did miss my first 4 or 5 emails because their inbox is so full. But once they finally did open up the 5th or the 6th email, once they read the content, they realized that I was fulfilling a need for them.
Awesome. That is excellent advice. Everybody that's listening, I hope you guys are really taking notes because that was very practical. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
I also wanted to ask you, so when you work with these companies, in your bio, it said that you advise them on how to market to millennial moms and Black consumers. Is that right?
Yeah.
So do you get pressure from that? Because it's kind of like, that makes me think about me being in like a predominantly white office and everybody always asking me the Black questions. And I'm like the spokesperson for the Black community at that moment because I'm the only Black person in the room. So do you have any pressure on yourself to in that role?
You know, it never dawned on me until you just mentioned that. I feel the pressure, definitely, to clarify misconceptions and make sure I get it right. Success to me is telling the story of our generation, of us as women, of us as Black people, our hopes, our fears, our challenges, our everyday struggles, our wins, and having someone in the office or having someone read my articles and listen to my story and make a positive impact as a result of that story, that's success. And the pressure is worth it once I'm successful. And as long as I'm building or improving upon the narrative for my generation, gender, and my race, then I feel like I've gotten it right. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's a lot on the lines of why we started this podcast, because I felt like when it came to entrepreneurship, it was always this thing of, I'm successful, here's how you get successful like me. But nobody was really actually speaking from the perspective of being in the trenches. Like, I just started my business. This is super hard. This is what my blood, sweat, and tears look like. This is how I overcame that hurdle. This is the next hurdle because the hurdles don't stop. You know, I felt like, those weren't talked about at all. So it was important for me to create this platform for that reason. And I think it's amazing, one, that you're doing that, but also that companies actually have the awareness that that's needed.
Absolutely. And I applaud you for doing that. And companies have that awareness because as the generations get older, they're just becoming more and more diverse. My children, Generation Alpha, they have a more diverse generation than Generation Z. And Generation Z is more diverse than my millennials. And there's a spending power that's associated with that companies have to be aware of if they want to continue, if they want to see year 2100.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of the conflicts when it came to these conversations that you're having with these companies? Are they like, do they even have a clue if it wasn't for people like you that kind of help them understand the Black consumer?
It's one of those things where you can easily get caught up in the stereotypes and assume that you're already aware of who a consumer is, or you can get caught up in the data and assume that you can predict what a consumer is going to do. But to have data is just to have numbers, and to be insightful and really understand a consumer, you have to go inside of the consumer. That's kind of why I think it's called insight, because you have to go inside of the consumer. And I'm happy that I'm able to deliver insights about my specific segments, which is being a millennial and being a woman and being a Black person, because it's easy for organizations to get caught up in what they've seen historically in the media. And unfortunately, that's just not always the case for what it means to be a woman or to be a Black person or to be a millennial.
That's so true. And as I was even preparing today to talk to you, I was reading like a lot of your articles, trying to get a better feel of your perspective on things. And your articles are so funny. First of all, the one about when you did the ancestry test and you found out that you were like 1/3 white, I could not stop laughing, because I was like, I would be pissed.
That, because that was, oh God. Like, you know, I am controversial and I'm bipolar. I'm not bipolar. I'm polarizing. So you either love my articles or you hate them. You either love me as a person or you hate me. And I definitely, with every person saying that they laughed and completely understood my tone, I had 10 people calling me out of my name and all kinds of things. You wouldn't believe it.
Wow. How do you develop like the tough skin and the confidence to not only be so unapologetic in the first place, but to be able to take all of those jabs and not want to react to them?
Oh my gosh. I'm unapologetic in my life, honey. That's just how. I mean, I believe my confidence comes from the women in my family or timid. And with us, you get the advice, you get the praise, you get the judgment, what have you, straight, no chaser, you know, like Beyonce says. And I think when people read my writing, they truly get a sense of who I am. It's my most comfortable method in which to communicate with anyone and everyone. I would much rather write my feelings than say them.
Right. Yeah, you was writing them feelings, all right. Because I was like, if I was to do this test, and that's the Ancestry.com thing was something that I wanted to do recently. And I was like, if I do that and I find out that I'm like 1/3 white, I would be pissed too. Like, I would be so upset.
Well, see, this is the thing. It wasn't that I was pissed at my family, but I wasn't pissed at the fact that I was 32% white. I was just truly shocked and surprised, because you have to understand, yes, I'm white, but I've never seen a white person in my entire family. So I was shocked that no one would question, and I also know that Black people come in all different shades, but I was surprised that no one in my family would dig into our ancestry until recent years, as I mentioned in the article my uncle has. But no one wanted to find out any type of genetic ancestry on us. I just thought that was crazy.
Yes, and your dad had the classic, like, when I was reading your writing and saying his responses, in my mind, I was envisioning like a Kanye shrug while he was answering you. Like, oh, well.
Right, exactly. Right. Like, and back to him, like, to his point, like, house swag. How are we going to have 0.6% Native American dad, but I'm half Native American? That makes no sense.
That's so funny. And I also loved your article about imposter syndrome too, because that's something I didn't really start hearing that phrase until I became an entrepreneur. And then I identify with it to a certain extent. With imposter syndrome, I don't necessarily feel like I don't deserve anything that comes to me, but sometimes I do feel like, what makes you think you can XYZ? I feel like there's definitely a little bit of that there. But what made you even want to talk about imposter syndrome, and what's so significant about it?
So I wanted to talk about it because I am now working in corporate strategy and development, which is a very difficult department to get into for any large company. And I work for a very large consumer products company. So I'm surrounded by people who don't look like me. They're older than me. They might be a different skin tone than me. They might be a different gender than me. And it makes me a bit uncomfortable, and it makes me sometimes feel like I'm not worthy of being there. And people who experience imposter syndrome, they're high achievers who can't internalize and accept their success. And I could relate to that. And I tend to attribute my accomplishments to luck rather than to ability, which is what people who experience imposter syndrome too. And then I always feel like somebody is going to unmask me as a fraud, even though I have all of these accomplishments and the facts to back it up. And it's something that millennials are most likely to experience because not only because of technological advancements, but because of the pressures of society, because of social media and how we compare ourselves to one another, but also because of our parents raising us with mixed messages, also between being praised by our parents, but also criticism. And those are all things that I struggle with. So I just wanted to write about that. And I never thought that article would go so viral, but I'm glad that once again, that if I tell a story, that people can resonate with that story and feel comfortable and are relieved and thankful that their voice is being heard.
Yeah, and the first time I heard about it, I was like, that's it. That is it. Like, that is it right there. So shout out to whoever created this, but that's it. And even now, as an adult, I have a friend who's a life coach, and we always go back and forth because she always tells me how I'm too hard on myself and I need to be a little bit nicer to myself. And so one thing that we discovered, we went on a retreat together recently, was my family growing up, like getting good grades, going to college and all that was normal. It was expected. So being proud wasn't necessarily something big because you're just doing what you're supposed to do. And even now in entrepreneurship, it was kind of like, I'm waiting for somebody to say I'm proud of you, or, I'm happy you're doing what you love. And I just didn't get that. And I don't really get that often. So it's kind of like that feeds the imposter syndrome because I know I'm working hard. But then it's at the same time, it's like, what am I really even doing? So
absolutely, I completely understand.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is like the real deal. So what are some ways for our listeners and us as we are recognizing these things? How can we overcome imposter syndrome?
Well, at the end of the day, it's just another form of fear and worry. You have to acknowledge that. I was in my research, I found that 85% of what people worry about never even happens. And for the 15% that does happen, you can always, it never comes out the way that you thought it was going to happen. So that's the first thing. You have to get out of your head. You have to periodically reflect on your successes and consider failures learning opportunities. To your point, you need to periodically reflect on all of the milestones you've had as an entrepreneur and see those as successes, And then we have to stop comparing, and this is very difficult in the age of social media and being as young as we are, but we have to stop comparing ourselves to colleagues and friends.
Absolutely. I'm like, maybe like every month or so, I just unfollow a bunch of people. Anybody who makes me feel anything other than positivity is getting unfollowed. Like, it's just, I cannot. You just have to be intentional about protecting your mental health. Like, it is such an intentional process. And even to that point, you were very transparent in another article about how you dealt with anxiety and how it really came to you came to this realization when you were on a plane and had a panic attack. So, and anxiety is something that I've dealt with before. It's something I'm very intentional about. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't really talk about. So how is that going for you now? And what are some ways that you prevent or deal with anxiety?
Well, after I had the panic attack on a plane, I now take medication for my anxiety. Thank you, Lord Jesus. But discussing it with like family and friends, anybody who will listen, has been transforming. I think that with any type of mental or physical ailment that you may have, the worst thing you can do is suppress it and keep it inside. I think discussing things is very healthy. You never know what someone is going through, and most of the time people are going through the same thing you're going through and they're trying to suppress it. I have a lot of people who can sense when I'm harping on something or I'm feeling inadequate or I'm about to have an anxiety attack. So those people, I consider them like my community of counselors, and they just remind me. In my head, they'll say things like, take a deep breath. Don't be afraid of your blessings. Did you go to the gym today? Because they know that that's what relieves my anxiety. They'll tell me not to eat bad foods, knowing that I need to be eating like omega-3s and fatty and folic acids to calm me down. They know that I need to go to bed early, and my husband will easily say, get some sleep, let me take care of the kids, go to bed early. And those things help me with dealing with my anxiety.
That's awesome. Have you been to therapy before?
I have, yes.
How did you like it?
I love it. I don't feel ashamed about going. I honestly just feel like I'm venting. I've been with my husband. I've been alone. I love it because I love different. I think that's just because of who I am. Like, I love insights and I love data. So I love when somebody can look at me as a third party and give me sound advice that's based off of actual psychology and psychiatry. I love that.
That's awesome. I love to hear people talk positively about therapy, because in our community, it's kind of like, what's wrong with you? What you want a therapy for?
Absolutely. It's the same as working out. Like, working out in our community 10 years ago was like, why am I waste money on a gym membership? And then it became, why am I going to go to yoga? So I just, I just, God bless Black millennials, because we are really transforming what it means to be a Black person in 2017 from some of the stereotypes that we've lived with since the 60s and 70s.
Absolutely. And now we have that, what's that documentary, What the Health, that has everybody like testing out being vegan and everything. We are really changing it. Yep. So you did mention that you were a mom, you're a wife. So I know that is the foundation of why you're so passionate about millennial moms and motherhood and having that conversation. So what is the conversation that you want to have about that? Because I know when you reached out, you were saying that there are so many millennial mothers, but a lot of people don't really talk about their experiences. So what has happened in your experience that made you want to have a conversation on this topic?
Well, I just wanted to have a conversation about mothers and the fact that so many millennials are becoming mothers. With 9,000 babies being born to millennial moms every day, they're raising a new generation, being Generation Alpha. And that generation is more technologically advanced than any other generation. And millennial moms have to deal with so many more pressures now. They're in the workforce more than other generations, so they're dealing with work-life balance like you wouldn't believe. They're raising kids, and they have to be constantly aware of cyberbullying and some of the social pressures that children are dealing with in school now. We're just living in a much more stressful and anxiety-driven world as millennial moms. And I feel like our stories aren't really told. They're kind of just summarized into the overall motherhood experience. But even though I was once told that every day of motherhood is a new day. So when you become a mom for the first time, you're a mom for the first time, but the day that your child turns 7, that's the first day that you're going to be a mom to a 7-year-old. So every day is a new experience. But at the same time, I really do feel like millennial moms are dealing with a lot more experiences that other generations never even had to deal with.
You know, that's so true. And even just thinking about myself, I don't have children yet, but even thinking about like my life plan when I want to get married and have kids, I always said like I can't even think about having a child until I'm in the position to where I can really be hands-on. Because when I was growing up, my mom wasn't really around like that. I was pretty independent. So I would take the bus to the babysitter's house. And I remember one time she forgot to tell me that the babysitter wasn't going to be home. So I had to like find a neighbor, walk to some random person's house to call my mom and stuff. And she was able to come get me. But you can't do that these days. Somebody will do something to your child.
That's right. And twinsies, because that happened to me too. And I think that's because our mothers were probably working mothers. So we can relate.
Absolutely. And then it's like I have a mentoring program for teenagers, and so in our sessions we are often talking about like social media and things like that. And I was at a middle school, and they had like an exposed Twitter page where they were like exposing girls, and this girl was this and this girl was that, putting screenshots up. I'm like, y'all are like 12. What are y'all talking about? I was eating cereal, mixing cereals and watching cartoons. Like, what in the world is happening with this generation? But I think that's so awesome that you are really initiating this conversation, because it's something that I might talk about casually with my friends in preparation for having kids and stuff. But I couldn't imagine how much it really takes out of someone to have children these days. So what are some things that you have to do extra now, in addition to monitoring like technology and stuff, just to make sure that you raise well-rounded humans?
I definitely have to have the conversation about education with my children and making sure that they understand that I'm not harping on them about their schoolwork. Even in the first grade, my daughter's about to enter, I'm not harping on her about her schoolwork just because I want her to get good grades. I want her to understand the discipline involved with educating yourself and how you can apply that education and that learning and that discipline into other aspects of your life. I'm trying to teach what it means to be a girl, in 2017, when it's so cool to be so masculine and just gender fluid, which I appreciate, and there's a time and a place for that, but I was raised as a debutante. So I do think that you still need to learn how to carry your head high and shoulders back and walk in heels and all of those old school Southern things. I still want to teach that to my daughter. And with my son, I have to teach him the importance of respect and confidence as well. I mean, he's a Black man in 2017. And even though he's only 2 years old, he's still looked at as a Black man, which is sad, but I have to prepare him for that as well.
Wow. That's like so heavy. How do you handle that? In addition to being a wife, in addition to being a career woman, like how, Sway? How do you do this?
A day at a time. A day at a time. That's all. That's the only advice I can give is just a day at a time. I don't get overwhelmed and think about all of that stuff going on. I just have to take it as it comes, or I'll just crawl into a ball, like a corner in a ball, and just have my hair falling out my head like Marge Simpson. I can't. So I have to take it a day at a time.
Wow. I couldn't even imagine. So are there any resources for moms, especially millennial moms, to have these conversations, to maybe, I don't know, support each other, like anything to make it a little easier?
Sure. I am a huge fan of podcasts, which is why I discovered your podcast, but I'm also a huge fan of podcasts that relate to the everyday working mom, podcasts that relate to just the career woman overall. I think it's really healthy to hear other women's stories and experiences, and sometimes you just get that cathartic church feel out of it, where you just are so happy to hear somebody else's story because you can really relate and resonate with that. And that's exactly what I look for my writing to do as well. That's why I'm always so honest and truthful, because it can be overwhelming at times. I completely understand that. But just hearing the voice of somebody who's saying, I've been there, or looking at an article of somebody who said, I've been there and I know exactly what you're going through, that's helpful.
Yeah, I agree. The podcasts are like everything these days. Are there any podcasts in particular that you like for millennial moms?
I'm a fan of the Mom Hour. I'm a fan of Boss Mom. My friend, she has a podcast called The Oprah Rose Show, and it's a part empowerment and spirituality and inspiration, and part just sex and Black pop culture. That's why it's a combination of Oprah Winfrey and Amber Rose, Oprah Rose Show. And I've done her show, and I love it because it's just so unfiltered, but at the same time, it can be so inspiring. She'll have female Black professionals on there, but she'll also have men who are giving their perspective about dating and whatnot. And even though I'm not single, I still love to hear that just for like a good laugh. That's one of my favorite podcasts.
I just subscribe because that is just like everything I enjoy in one setting, ratchet and righteous. Like that is perfect.
Oh, you're going to love it. Oh, you're going to love it.
I'm going to subscribe right now. So thank you for the recommendation, and I'm going to tell her that you sent me here.
Okay.
So to wrap up our conversation, is there anything else about motherhood that you want to share, about entrepreneurship, about careers? Because we do have a lot of career women and moms who listen to our show.
Awesome. I would just say that if you ever have an idea for an article, I'm always open to ideas. You can always email me at christine.michelle.carter@gmail.com. If you think you have an idea about an article that offers work-life balance for other moms or something that you're struggling with and you'd like me to cover and research, I'm happy to do that. I mean, I'm passionate about millennial women, Black women, millennial moms because it's me. I'm passionate about myself and seeing myself represented in a positive light, like we were talking about in the beginning. I'm no different than all the other Black millennial women in the world. And I think that that's why the hashtag Black Girl Magic or like mommy on Instagram is so popular. I had a consulting conversation with BET about Black millennials a couple of weeks ago. My takeaway for them was this, like, don't look at the numbers. Aside from the numbers, understand the fact that representation for Black millennials and millennial moms is very important. And like all millennials, they're self-absorbed than other generations, those two segments, but they demand their world highlight them and reflect them and look like them in all facets for less superficial reasons. Black millennials and millennial moms are not going through the same issues as all millennials. And both have been misrepresented for so long. It's just important now to get the story right.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for not only talking about the change, but being a part of it, having these conversations, writing these articles, being on these major platforms and writing these articles. Like, on behalf of everybody listening, just thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing because it's so important.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that wraps up our conversation. I could talk to you all day, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Absolutely. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, that wraps up another episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast. As usual, tune in every Monday on iTunes and SoundCloud and follow us on the gram at Black Girl Bosses.